today I'm going to be trying a couple of new Let's Resin products. Let's Resin kindly sent these to me, and they aren't new to the market, but they are brand new to me. And I have here 2 new molds and a auto electric epoxy mixer. Now, if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I'm a bit skeptical about the mixer. I will tell you guys why later, but first let's unbox these molds. So first up, we have a apple resin jar mold. Oh, that's gonna look so cute. So we have the apple, and then this one here is a pear. They posted a reel about this on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and they just looked so cute that I had to have them, and they kindly offered to send them to me, so can never say no to free molds. That's what the little pear is going to look like. How cute is that? Before we get to the electric mixer, I just wanted to quickly point something out to you guys that I noticed on these lids. And it's that the apple one here says 4.1 ounces and the pear one here says 3 ounces. I hope you guys can see that. And what I'm hoping that means is that the apple mold takes 4.1 ounces of resin and the pear mold takes 3 ounces of resin. And if that's what that means, kudos to Let's Resin. This is going to be so useful to us resin crafters, because sometimes when we get these molds, we either undermix or overmix resin to fill these molds. And now if they do say how much resin each one takes, there's going to be a lot of saved resin. So again, kudos to you, Let's Resin. So now let's take a look at this electric mixer. That's cute. It's a bit smaller than I thought it would be, but that looks cool. And then we have the on button. Oh, that startled me. It's already working. I guess there's a rechargeable battery in there. That looks cool. Okay. And then we have, oh wow. Look at these massive measuring cups. Oh, let me just quickly check what recyclable plastic this is. Oh, it's a 1. This would have been so much better if it was a 5, because in case anyone doesn't know, recyclable number 5 plastic doesn't fuse with resin. So it can just, once that resin is cured, it easily pops out. Okay, so what else is in the box? Okay, so I see 3 things. And there's the manual, nothing else. Okay, so we have the manual. I'll look at it once I'm ready to use the machine. Then we have a cable. We have USB to USB-C, and I assume this is for charging it because it works without it being plugged in. And then we have a funny mixing stick, I guess. It actually looks more like a tooth tool to me, especially this part, like a toothpick. Okay, so let's talk about why I'm feeling skeptical about this machine. And I have 2 reasons. One, I'm wondering how easy it is to clean up. As you guys can see, we have a bunch of blades here, and I'm just wondering how... Okay, so I can put my fingers through, so that will help. But there's just so many blades. And now knowing that this is a recyclable 1 cup, that means that I'm gonna have to clean this up as quickly as possible, so then that resin doesn't start curing and fusing to the plastic. And another thing too is I'm wondering, will Let's Resin sell these cups on their own? You only get 10 cups, and that's including the one that this machine came with. So hopefully they do sell these cups on their own. Now, the other reason I'm skeptical about this machine is air bubbles. Seeing how fast that goes. Now, I do assume that once resin is in the cup, the blades will slow down, but that's still going pretty fast, and I'm just wondering how many air bubbles are going to be introduced to the resin. So with that being said, I'm sorry if this intro ran a little bit long, but with all that being said, and now that I've showed you everything, let's get to making some resin fruit. Okay, so since we're making resin fruit, I thought I'd also throw in my strawberry jar mold and make one as well, so then I can show you guys what it looks like made with resin, just in case you haven't seen it elsewhere. Also, let me know down below what your favorite fruit is. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to quickly clean the inside of this cup with isopropyl alcohol. As I was taking it out of the packaging, it felt slightly dusty, and I want to make sure that none of that dust gets inside the resin. As you guys saw, I'm really impressed by the size of these cups. We have here 32-ounce cups, but according to the pamphlet and according to Let's Resin, you shouldn't be mixing more than 24 ounces at a time. So I'm going to mix up 12 ounces of resin, and I'm going to be using deep pour resin. These molds are slightly tall, and I want to make sure that the resin I put in there will be able to degas in time, and as we all know, deep pour resin is pretty good at degassing itself. I mixed 8 ounces of part A and 4 ounces of part B for the total 12 ounces that I'm using. And with that, let's hear what this machine sounds like while it's working with the resin. Okay, enough of that. So one thing I forgot to mention about this machine is that it works in 40-second intervals. And what that means is once you press that button, it will work for 40 seconds, and then once the 40 seconds is up, it automatically shuts off. Okay, so first impressions. It does seem that the resin was mixed okay. I can't see any streaks of unmixed resin, but there's a ton of micro air bubbles. I'm wondering what it would be like if I had used regular epoxy resin and not deep pour. And I'm just really glad that I went with the deep pour. Okay, so let's go back to the molds. I really want to test and see if the measurement of resin that's embossed on the lids is really how much resin these molds take. So I found some cups that are close to those measurements. The bigger cups are about 5 ounces and the smaller cup is 4 ounces. And I'm sitting here looking at these cups and looking at these molds, and I'm thinking there's no way this is enough resin to fill the lids and the bases of these molds. So I took a moment, I took a closer look at the bases of the molds, and yeah, the bases also have the amount of resin printed on them too. So I took some notes and did some math. And for the apple, the lid takes 4.1 ounces and the base takes 4.5 ounces of resin for a total of 8.6 ounces of resin. For the pear, the lid takes 3 ounces of resin. The base takes 11 ounces of resin for a total of 14 ounces of resin. Now, when it comes to the strawberry mold, like I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't by Let's Resin. It's just something that I found on Amazon. So I'm going to take the opportunity and try and figure out how much resin this mold takes. And I will put it on the screen. I will put it in the description box just in case you guys have this mold. Then you can take the note down and then you'll know how much resin the strawberry mold takes. Now, knowing the amount of resin these molds take, as you guys can see, I don't have enough resin. I'm at least short 10 ounces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these 12 ounces to fill the apple mold and then also fill the strawberry lid mold because I think that will be enough. In this instance, I'm really happy I have a whole collection of different sized cups for resin. And I found a 9-ounce cup and I'm going to take 9 ounces of the 12 ounces of resin. Now that is a little bit more than the 8.6 I need for the apple, but I do want to have a little bit of extra just in case. Since I'm making an apple, of course, I'm going to dye this resin red. And as it's degassing, I'm going to turn my mold inside out and I'm going to grab a little bit of the glitter that I put into the resin and sprinkle it onto the mold. With deep pour resin, it's really easy for glitter to sink, so doing this will help ensure that I have a little bit of glitter throughout the apple. I'm happy to report that the apple mold really did take the 8.6 ounces of resin, and I have to say it again, kudos to you, Let's Resin. Please keep doing this. Please keep adding the amount of resin your molds need. This is definitely going to help save a lot of unwanted wasted resin. One thing I'd like to point out with the lids of these molds, for all 3 of them actually, they do have a little bit of a lip, and it's really easy for air bubbles to stick to. So be sure that if you do buy this, to have like a little toothpick tool at the ready, so then you can just easily push out those air bubbles. For the rest of the 12 ounces of resin, I should have 3 ounces here. I'm just going to put it into the lid of the strawberry jar. I could put it into the lid of the pear mold since it is the right amount of resin, but one thing I've learned about resin is that mixing the exact same color twice is really tricky to do. There's just so many factors to it, like the amount of resin, the amount of pigment. It's really complicated. So I'm just going to clean the electric mixer up, and then we'll get to mixing the resin for the pear, which you guys will see in just a minute. Okay, so cleaning up this mixer. I'm first going to tell you guys how I did it, and then I'm going to tell you guys my thoughts on it. And I'm going to be honest, it wasn't fun. I didn't find it fun. I first started with the white part, the part that has the blades. By the way, it can detach from the motor. It's just an easy slip on, slip off. And I started out by using a paper towel to wipe off all the excess resin off of it. Then using the black tool that came with the mixer, which is a cleaning tool, not a mixing tool, I wrapped a little bit of the paper towel around it and wiped off the resin from the nooks and crannies between the blades. To finish it off, I sprayed it with some isopropyl alcohol and then wiped it down with a baby wipe. As for the mixing cup, I pretty much did the exact same thing. I used paper towels to remove the excess resin and finished it off by spraying isopropyl alcohol in it and around it with a baby wipe to clean it off. Now, to clean this mixer, it did take me a good 10 to 15 minutes just to clean it. Don't worry, I've sped this part up for you guys so you won't see the full 15 minutes. But if I'm totally being honest with you, I don't know if it's worth the effort of the cleanup. I've mentioned before that I usually work with smaller amounts of resin, no more than 5 ounces at a time, because I like working with resin in layers. I just don't see myself using this much. Now, if I was to make a big batch of resin, for example, the 24 ounces, which I actually will be doing in just a moment for the pear and the strawberry jar, I can see it being worthwhile just because mixing a big batch of resin like that can be pretty tricky, and it can put strain on your hands and your wrists. For someone who gets carpal tunnel or has problems with their hands or wrists, it's a useful tool to have. But for me personally, I only see myself using this when I need to mix a big batch of resin, and I think it would be more for when I need more than 10 ounces of resin. Let me know down below if you have this electric mixer and what your thoughts are and how you're getting along with it. Now that the mixer is nice and squeaky clean, it's time to mix up some more resin for the pear and the strawberry base. This time, I'm going to be mixing the max amount of resin that Let's Resin recommends using for the machine. So I'm going to be mixing 12 ounces of part A and 8 ounces of part B. And I'm actually going to use this opportunity to see how this machine handles mixing 24 ounces of resin. Okay, so the verdict is I didn't have much luck mixing the 24 ounces of resin properly. The resin was mixed for 10 minutes and I still had streaks of unmixed resin within the resin. That's a mouthful. And in case you don't work with resin, a lot of the resins that I use personally, there is a recommendation of 5-minute mixing time, but because I'm working with deep pour resin and deep pour resin has more working time, I was fine giving it another 5 to 7 minutes more of mixing time, but it didn't work. I ended up having to mix the rest of the resin by hand, as you guys can see. So I'm not sure if it was my fault or if it was the resin's fault. On the pamphlet, it does recommend you using Let's Resin's resin. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'll have to try it with Let's Resin's resin and see if I get better results. Though the first 12 ounces of resin that I did mix, it did come out okay. Maybe it's just too much. As I'm filling up the rest of the molds, I will give you my final thoughts on this mixer, but I just want to take a moment and appreciate the shade of green I got for the pear. Doesn't it remind you of those Jolly Rancher candies? Yeah, totally candy vibes. I can taste the green apple right now. Okay, so my final thoughts. I think, and I emphasize that I think, I think this machine is good for someone who mixes bigger batches of resin. Based on my experience with it, especially the second time around when I mixed the 24 ounces, if that's really how it works, where it doesn't fully mix it because it can't handle the 24 ounces of resin, it could still be useful to have to get your mixing process started and take some of that strain off your hands. I do like the fact that it's rechargeable and doesn't always have to be plugged into the power. And I also really like the size of the mixing cups. I'm really stuck on the size of the mixing cups. But in the end, I think it's really up to personal preference and how much resin you normally mix. If I was to give a rating to this mixer, I think it would be a 3 out of 5 stars, just because I didn't really like the effort it took to clean it up. Now that these molds are filled up, I'll be back in 2 days and we'll demold them together. Okay, let's see how cute these little jars have turned out. Let's start with the pear. There's the lid. That's really cute. I really like that. I'm really glad I sprinkled that glitter on the mold. As I'm turning it, you can see all those little specks of glitter throughout the pear. Okay, let's do the strawberry. Ooh, I love how transparent it is. By the way, I apologize if you guys can hear background noise. My cat's decided to do his zoomies right in the morning. And here's the strawberry base. I do wish it was as transparent as the lid, but I still really like it. And lastly, the apple. Be sure to let me know down below which piece is your favorite. You can see what I was meaning about the glitter sinking. Right here, look at all that glitter that's sunk. Well, that was a struggle. And there's the apple. Now to finish these off, I really want to go in with a chrome marker for the little tips. So I think with the pear, I'm going to do silver, and then with the for the apple, I'm going to do gold. So let's see how that turns out. And as I'm painting the tips of these resin jars, I'm going to start my outro. This video has been a bit longer than I anticipated. If you've made it this far into the video, let me know by putting a fruit emoji in the comment section. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you've learned something. If you did, then please smash the like button. And if you'd like to see other resin crafting videos I've done on this channel, then be sure to check out one of the videos that's about to pop on screen. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!